Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Audio Snobs, the new chat show called Sound Advice. And you're going to get some seriously sound advice from four industry OGs here. These guys, between us, the four of us, I swear we've made over 1,000 records. Do go check us out. You can find our names on Discogs or allmusic.com. We've been there, we've done it, old school style. We're still around, and here we are to chat every week about music production techniques. Okay, so who have we got? We've got the incredible Mr. Marcellus Fernandez. We've got the wonderful Mr. Tim Russell. Hey, and we've got the sexiest fuck, Mr. Chris Jones. So this week, the subject this week is a bit of a weird one. You got one compressor. You're allowed one compressor. Which compressor you're going to choose and why? Now, you do have the choice of any compressor that's ever been made, but you're stuck with one. So if you've got to track a whole piece of music and then you've got to mix that whole piece of music, obviously you're going to be printing that compressor quite a bit. But you've got the one compressor. Bit of a strange concept, but we'll get into that. So who wants to go first? You've got one compressor. Which compressor? Marcellus.
Okay. One compressor, Paul.
Well, hit me,
you know what I'm going to say. Okay,
yeah.
So for me, let's reduce it to a common denominator. A compressor as a tone shaper or a compressor as a dynamic unit.
So he's flipping it on me. I knew he'd do this. It's got to be both, I guess, is the answer to that.
Yeah, okay. So how do you take the saturation out of something? You can't. So for that reason, I'm gonna have two compressors. You can reduce it to one after the conversation, or maybe we can reduce it to one at the end.
Can't you just use the one compressor twice?
No, yes, because exactly. If you've got glue on the compressor, you've got twice the amount of glue when you put it back through it.
So you're going, you've got to have two. Or
okay, I'm going to go for one then because I like saturation, right? And my go-to would be an LA2, to be quite honest with you. And not the old one, but the 80s one because it's a bit faster.
All right.
A little bit faster. Okay, if you want this massive, big sound for a ballad or something like that. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
The original... I think it's grey face or silver face. Can't remember which one's which.
Silver face. Oh, anyway, whatever. Yeah.
So the one from the oldie is massive. It just sounds huge, like a Fairchild almost. You know.
Yeah. And you didn't choose Fairchild, interestingly.
Well, I had a Fairchild. And what I found it interesting for was I was doing mainly hip hop when I had the 670, and I found that it was there's 12 vowels in each channel, you know.
Too slow.
Too slow, too back rather than forwards, you know. I still feel the LA2's got an amount of forward in it.
Yeah.
You know?
Mm-hmm. Bit of crunchiness. Yeah.
Bit of crunchiness, but it brings that sound to the forefront. A very MU, which is what a Fairchild is.
Absolutely.
Is all engulfing big sound. So I'd use it more for solos and stuff like that, you know, that want to make really sound big. And so therefore I would sit in the middle. LA3s, I'm very keen on LA3s as well.
I'm glad you mentioned that because to be honest, we have talked about this off camera before this session, and I knew Marcellus was going for the LA2A. And I was thinking to myself, he didn't say anything about the LA3A. Go ahead.
No. So because you said one. So
yeah.
So the reason I didn't pick the Tube Tech CL1B, I think that's a fantastic compressor.
Beautiful.
And it's become more apparent over I suppose in the 2000s, really. In the 90s, it was a secret weapon. Nobody knew about it. Really.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it's just got such a big sound. It's more transparent than an LA2. And
it's a hard note when you
and it's octave. Yeah,
It's a hard nut when you want it to be, isn't it? Let's be honest. That's shit. I mean,
it can
you
be.
can literally flatten something with that thing.
Yeah, yeah. But with the opto thing,
Yeah.
if it hasn't got some bite, which the Uri stuff and the UAD stuff had in the middle, it just had that little poke, poked a bit in the middle. The LA3 poked more than the LA2, but the LA2 was bigger and had a bit of poke. So that's why I'd probably pick the LA2. I find it hard to move off that compressor.
Cool. I mean, you've obviously not mentioned what might be people's choice that they maybe have expected you to have named.
I think 1176 is the one everybody really
absolutely
still can't has got a love affair with, you know. But for me, I like a more open sound than that. Maybe the vocal has to, huh?
Could you just tell the audience how many 1176s you owned at one time?
You know what? Strangely enough, I never owned an 1176. I had LA2 and two LA3s.
Oh, I thought you had about 7 1176s or something.
No, it's probably the studio I was working in at the time. But I used them a lot. But at that time, I thought they were expensive, and I wish I bought 6 of them, to be quite honest.
I bought 2, and I have no regrets whatsoever.
Silver or blackface?
I had 1 silver and 1 black.
Ah, perfect.
And, you know, I've got a nice little analogy here. I was working with Alan Douglas. Let's name drop, shall we? Eric Clapton, Olympic Studio One, darling.
Why not?
And they wheeled in one of the brand new UA LA2A remakes.
Right.
And he immediately put it on Eric's vocal chain. And as he's dialing away, I sort of said to Alan, I said, "So what are you saying, Alan? The new LA2A or an original?" And he looked at me and he said, "Which original?" Get it? It's like, you know, because obviously they're in various states of repair and God knows what. And he said, "Well, which original?"
There you go. And that's my view as also, Paul, regarding old equipment and remakes. If they've remade it with exactly the same components, it's not going to sound the same because the other unit's 50 years old. But as they age, they're starting to sound better. And I think people are starting to twig that actually a new one is going to be a better idea because, as you said, 1 in 10 will be good when you hire it in. And what's the point of hiring it in, you know, if you're not going to
get 9 duds on the way?
Right. I'm sure you've all done it, ordered it, and then sent it back because it didn't sound right.
I've done that with loads of stuff. God bless Mark at Funky Junk. Thank you, Mark. I know he's retired now, but that was that beautiful policy. Yeah, I mean, he was just like, he didn't even talk to you about it for a couple of weeks, and then he'd say, one time he'd sent me a C12 remake, and I was using it, and I'd asked for a 67, and he sourced me a 67. He sent me this 67, and as soon as I listened to the 67, it was game over, and I rang him, and he said, "You want to send the C12 back, yeah?" You know, it was like. So I loved Mark. What a dude!
Oh, he was a
junk.
Yeah,
you could send anything back to Mark, you know, and it was no questions asked, you know. So I bought 2 1176s from him, a black face and a silver face, and I preferred the silver face of the 2, but they're individual units. Who's to say I couldn't have maybe got a better black face and a worse silver face at the time, and have preferred the black face, you know.
I think silver and black, the silver sounds like, you know, you've got with a bass guitar, you got a Fender Precision, you got a Fender Jazz. They're 2 different sounds, I think the silver face for me always used to have more cut, and
absolutely,
and the black face was a darker sound, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's enough darkness going on in your track already. You don't really want to start pumping darkness in a track, do you?
That's what you're working on.
Well, if it's hip hop, I suppose you do.
Yeah. I think you should have the option at all points to go north or south. You know, you shouldn't always say, "I'm always going to do that," you know.
No, because it depends on the material,
wisdom.
And you know, that moment in the mix when you make a decision and the whole thing goes pow, and I still audition it, even as much as I know about sound and equipment. I think the LA2 is not going to work on this one, so I'll start with something else. and it doesn't work. And you pop the LA2 on and it works. And you thought, hold on a sec, I thought I knew that this was going to work, but I still audition it now, you know? And that's a great thing about computers. Before, you had to get the patch bay cords out, find the issue. The patch bay would be like a spaghetti junction.
Yeah.
You know, 3 to 4 minutes later, you've got it in and you've lost the vibe, you know. Digital, you just go click, click, no, that one, boom.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really hearing that, man. So LA2A for you, I get it.
Yeah, that's
my only concern, but you are an out-and-out expert beyond me. Is the lack of control over there. You can't actually control the attack.
Well, you can control how sensitive it is to certain frequencies. If, for instance, you want to grab some of the presence region or spitting or teeing or popping or something, you just set it to a mid frequency and it triggers.
So you're side chaining the input to it.
Kind of, basically, side chaining the input, exactly. Yeah.
Can I ask you a question, Marcellus?
Yes, of course.
So, with the UA audio, do you find it works the same way for you, or similar? I mean, similar go-to on that as well.
Yeah, I do. I use that trick on the LA2 in the box. There's a little tweaker adjustment on the front, and it says HF on clockwise, and boom. So I just play with that a lot. Also, I might EQ it into the compressor a certain way, and then set the opposite of that EQ after it, so I can get the compressor to be more responsive. I feel that plugins are not as great on certain things, so I don't try and battle them. I just try and outsmart them rather than, you know.
I love that. Yeah.
So you
are going to be my friend.
There are hundreds of tricks out there, and actually, literally, it's all available to people now. If you want to start surfing, if you want to search for it, then go search for it. But otherwise, come to Audio Snobs, and we'll show you how it works.
Big time,
right?
Big up, Marcellus. Big up. See, we're old geezers. We say big up and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, but big up. We are. You know, to be snobs. To me, that means discerning. It means you know a lot about something, so you're discerning about something, right? You know, you'll turn your nose up at something that just doesn't really cut it for you because you know what sounds better. Oh. So on that subject, right? Who wants to go next? What compressor? We want to hear about some more compressors. Tim, Chris, Tim.
I'll go, mate. I mean, I'm going to sort of be slightly controversial here and actually say an 1178.
Oh,
stereo version.
Just a number of times you want a matched stereo set of compressors.
And you're cheating a little bit as well, because Marcellus got his one mono compressor because I beat on him. And you get two monos or one stereo.
It's still one box.
It's one box, yeah, that's right. It's clever choice.
And somewhat limited in its choice, but at the same time, it still sounded like two 76ers. And you were happy with that for the most part.
Tim, what does an 1176 sound like?
God knows. Sorry.
It thickens, does it?
Yeah, I mean, it thickens. It adds a little bit of bottom end on a lot of things. Obviously, you've got to be a little careful so you don't get too much and stuff like that. But it was just a nice sparkle, and in the case of the 1178, a nice stereo image of what you were trying to do.
Absolutely.
I mean, I didn't find that they lost or they narrowed the image too much, which certainly a lot of things that were considered stereo did tend to, if you weren't careful.
Yeah.
You know, hence why you got all these SPL vitalizers and things that spread your mix even wider, you know.
I hated those things then, and I'm really not a fan now, you know.
I had to show one producer how his wild, lovely sounding SPL vitalizer had actually put the entire mix out of phase.
Out of phase, that's the issue, isn't it?
What was that? The stereo button, was it?
But I mean, you could make it sound like a million miles wide, but then the moment you put a mono switch on the whole thing, you had a vocal left. And
classic problem with a wide sound. Yeah.
and stuff like that. So no, not a fan of those. But no, as a compressor and so on, I love just the practicality of the 1178. It's a slightly simplified 1176 and yet stereo, and yet you could use it in mono, no problem. And so you
what was the difference, Tim?
God,
less controls.
Less controls. Well, you didn't have the individual
gain of the inputs.
Yeah, and
correct me if I'm wrong. There's a transformer on the input and the output of an 1178. I think.
I'm not going to answer that. I couldn't tell you for sure.
Right.
I bow to your better judgment
on that one.
I don't really know. I just twiddle all the knobs till it sounds right, to be honest.
That's about it, isn't it, really? You know. Can I just ask you all, before we get to Chris's compressor of choice and continue with Tim, what was it like for all of you when you first, take yourself back to day one, ground zero, when you first were introduced to compression, compressors, worked out how the hell to hear them, let alone use them? Have you got any memories of what it was like getting your head around compressors?
Personally, I would just say that everything, when I first was allowed into the studio, then I mean, right when you were clearing up or whatever, I would stay up late or long past, and I would just use the television to plug as an audio source when there was nothing else there, and then just plug it through everything and press buttons and see what the hell it did. That way I understood what it did. I might not know all the technology or the terminology behind it, but at least you knew what it did.
You got to hear it, obviously.
Yeah, you've got to hear it, exactly that, because all the manuals in the world are great, but unless you hear what it is it's doing, it means nothing, really. So that was my approach to everything. So I just used my T-boy downtime to learn all the equipment.
What a dude! That was your pay at the time, really, wasn't it? You're in a studio. You get to use it when everybody's finished with it.
But T-boys would take home wads and wads and wads of manuals. I said, when are you going to learn that? I mean, come on, and even if you do, you haven't heard what that actually means. So what does it mean to you? Just do what I do. And they looked at me in horror and said, no, we must learn. We must read. I mean, I think the best manual I ever read was when Joe Meek came out with their compressors.
I hate that thing, but anyway.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, I got it done to check it. But the instruction manual basically said input volume, output volume, twist them. When you like it, it's done. And I thought, that's brilliant. That's all the instruction you need. When you like what you're hearing, you're done, kind of thing. It's not more complicated than that. And there wasn't even a website or anything in those days to even sort of look deeper in it. It's just a one sheet of A4 manual kind of thing. And it was only like half the sheet of paper.
Yeah.
But
brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. I mean, that was the only luxury any assistant or T-boy or runner had, was, despite being, I mean, the way you guys were treated in those positions in the day was actually against the law, wasn't it? I mean, come on, they were slaves, but they did get to play with stuff on the sort of half an hour between sessions when they hadn't slept, and then the client's back in and it's game on again, but that was the most precious time.
That's where you learned, or you could ask questions on the sly kind of thing, keeping the voice down, but otherwise that's how you learned.
Did you assist for anybody? Did you assist for anybody of note at the time, Tim, who sort of gave you some pearls of wisdom? Or was it just
I mean, some of them you could say, but I mean, most of it you just watched and listened, and sort of, when you heard something change, you looked at what it was they were plugged in through, and then checked what they changed on the outboard. That's really what you did. You could ask a nice engineer who, if he had the chance, he would explain why he'd done something. But that was luck of the draw if you got that. That was luxury, lad.
I hear that. So you're going 1178. Why? Because that gives you two compressors, or because it gives you a stereo option?
It gave me a stereo option, and as I said, it slightly limited the amount of control you had over it. You couldn't individually just the attack on the different channels. It was going to be one, and that would be the whatever was set for your master one, and it would work off that.
Yeah.
But I mean, to be honest, the thing, unless you got some really dodgy vocalist or whatever you're trying to do, they were more than enough. You know, you didn't need more than that. You could get fancy. I mean, I love LA2s and LA3s as well. I mean, what doesn't Trident? Well, Audio One, we had what, 16 different compressors.
That was gorgeous, wasn't it? And they all worked.
And they all worked.
Matrix. Matrix had 6 of everything, but none of it worked. But yeah, that was sexy. That control room, Studio One control room, Audio One, Trident One, wasn't it? I mean, wow.
Was that St. Anne's Court?
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah,
legend.
Yeah. That's how Tim and I met. Is it? I mean, really? I had a room upstairs there. Yeah.
Was there for almost 5 years. So.
Yeah,
really?
Yeah. I mean, I went there when I was in a pop band in the 80s. I used Trident, and Trident's that legend, and it seemed really kind of rock and roll and a bit tawdry to me at the time.
Oh yeah, I would say everybody said that.
Okay, there you go. Fair enough. Yeah. But that control room was something, especially looking down on that vast live area beneath you. That was something else, wasn't it? Wow.
Yeah.
Was it Trident TSM console? Was that what they had?
Lovely. That was upstairs, wasn't it?
Was it?
Well, no, we had a Series 80 upstairs when I joined, but there had been TSMs there, and there had been, well, everything they built went through Trident at some point. Just to road test new models and things. So there were flexi mix desks and all sorts.
And then what was that company he formed after? Pale Blue. Loads of that. Orban.
Well, no, that's a separate guy. That's John Orban.
Sorry. Loads of that there.
He designed the B and C series desks.
Wasn't it the main man Malcolm Toft?
That's correct.
That was the other guy.
Yeah.
That was the other main designer.
I think John was more of the sales cat, was he not?
Well, no, he was brought in to expand, expand on the development of the 80s
company
and the TSM. In actual fact, those two. No, because he is an engineer.
Oh, is he?
And so that's what he was brought in to do. But he organized a deal to be part of it by saying that, I want a percentage on every console sold.
I remember that.
And they agreed to that, not thinking they'd sell more than about 15 or 20, and they sold hundreds and hundreds. And as he was saying that he was making more than the bosses were. And they got a bit pissed off at that.
We agreed that Trident consoles were a bitch to use. I mean, but they sounded pretty gorgeous.
Yeah, I grew up in a Series 80.
Well, the Series 80 that was upstairs with the added PSM EQ and all the rest of it. That was really, really cool because there was only one of those ever made.
Yeah.
I last saw it being sold out in South America.
Okay.
Wow.
So God knows it had made its way down to Argentina at some point.
That's probably been modeled 1,000 times by a bunch of DSP guys.
Yeah, but I mean, the wonderful thing, and you know it, Paul, because we used up there enough times, that you had that TSM EQ, which was full 4-band, and then you had the separate set of normal Series 80 EQs, which is another 4 bands and so on. And if you inserted both EQs at once, you had 8-band EQ on the first 24 channels, which is kind of crazy.
That's why I said it was a bitch to use. It was like there was so much going on with that console. It was like, holy crap, you know.
I love that one, actually.
Tim, you know, I'm going to spill the beans. What happened was I had my own room at Trident, and when everybody had gone home, and all the staff, you know, reception, studio manager, etc., used to go home at sensible kind of times. We were left to play in the sweet shop, so we'd go and do a bunch of tracking on the Trident console upstairs. Then we'd take it downstairs and mix it in Studio A. As long as we were out of there by 9 o'clock the next morning, nobody knew, or if they did know, they turned a blind eye. So we got to really work that.
We turned a few blind eyes.
There were quite a few blind eyes turned there.
Well, as long as nothing gets trashed, nobody's going to complain. It's being used, and that's really all even the owners wanted, was for it to be used.
Can we tell them quickly a little story? Tim and I have had this discussion posthumously. I did used to trash the MTR 90, the 24-track tape machine, because there was a real trend in mixes at the time to have that tape stop sound, that sound. So I literally used to punch the pinch roller on the MTR 90 tape machine, and to get that sound. And afterwards, many years later, Tim said to me, God, we always wondered why the MTR 90s kept breaking down. True? But they just got on. Nobody ever asked me a question. Nobody ever complained. Just
no, I mean, as I say, as long as the next session sounds okay, you're good.
Yeah.
You'll be allowed back in.
Chris, Compressor, what you got for us?
Compressors. I think, it's a slightly hypothetical situation, obviously. So the stereo thing, I get that. Yeah. You need to have a stereo bus compressor somewhere around, or it's handy. But conceptually, practically, well, let me start. Like when I started engineering, I was kind of you threw me at the deep end, Paul, basically.
I sure did.
The first thing I was learning about compressors was tone shaping, taking. It wasn't about evening out takes. It was about getting a 909 closed hi-hat to sound a certain way. So there were like all sorts of cheap compressors that were actually really useful for that kind of shit.
Elise's 3630, big shout out. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, and those Drama, what were they? I can't remember.
The DS201 was the gate, but yeah, those ghastly Drama compressors. Yeah.
But you could, if you could hit them really hard on a drum machine hi-hat, and it would do something not designed to do. Sounded great.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I would plump for the 1176, probably Silverface, because I know all the different things that you can get out of that, the different ways you can use it for tone shaping as well as control. And in my experience, it's always sounded good. I know my way around it. And that's partly what it is. It's like what you know and what you've really delved into and feel confident in that it'll get what you want, as much as being told, oh, this is the one you should use.
Can I just throw a cat in amongst the pigeons here? Are we all aware that if you turn the attack knob fully left on an 1176, it clicks, and you basically bypassing the compression factor of the 1176, and the signal is just passing through it, and that is tone shaping, and it's rather sexy tone shaping.
Yeah, it's a line amp at that point when it clicks.
Absolutely.
And so basically, if you have an input on a transformer on the input, a transformer in the output, you're going through transformers. So if you jack your input level up to color the transformer how you like, and jack your output level up to if you're looking at the meter +40 or whatever you're looking at, and you hear the difference in the tone as you change those gain sections.
Big time. I love gear like that. Thanks for that brilliant explanation, Marcellus. I love gear like that. There is gear like that you just run a signal through it, and it improves the sound of what's going through it just because the signal is being run through it. I mean, the Focusrite ISA EQ is a classic example of that. Just putting something through the ISA makes it sound better. And I've got to give a big shout out to Lindell Audio. I'm not sponsored. We're not sponsored, or we're not sponsored. Hey guys, want to sponsor us? Just talk. Yeah. Anyway, but Lindell Audio, their plugins do the same thing. Their Neve 80 bus, for instance, you'll love this, Marcellus, if you haven't used it. You can flip it between either you've got the 81 or the 73 circuitry. You can flip between the two, and as soon as you literally go through it, bang, you hear the circuitry kick in. It's fantastic. Love it.
In fact, I would go so much as to say that now, when I first started, I do the balance, I do a certain part of the mix, then I put the compression and the special effects on, or plugins or whatever. But now I start with those in place at Unity. So I'm listening to what I'm actually going to be finishing with, rather than listening to something, putting something else on, going, that's changed the kick now. I've got to go back to the kick. I've got to go back to this. So I found that it was faster to just put it in circuit, what I was looking for, and then mix it after that was in place. So because digital is quite clean, I found by setting a bunch of channel strips, for instance, at the start of a mix, and thinking, I really want the SSL on the drums, I want the Neve on the vocals, I want this on the bass, So I thought that was a fantastic thing that I learned in the box, that actually now it's more relevant to be thinking about, what I want this to sound like at the end. Okay, so let me put this bunch of equipment on at Unity, start the mix, and then whatever I do, that's it. Whatever I'm doing at that moment is the final master. So when I finish the session, that's it. There's no, don't strap a pull tech across the mix bus at the end. Do it at the start.
That scares me. Putting a pull tech across the mix bus.
Don't set it to anything. Just have it at Unity.
I get it.
And
go on.
No, I was just going to say the pull tech thing I got from American engineers. One of the first American engineers who I learned from. He ordered 25 DBX 165s. I think we talked about this, Paul, at some point.
Yeah.
He walked in the room, ordered 25 DBX 165s. This is before SSLs, and a pull tech for the mix. It's two pull techs for the mix, and he absolutely annihilated the mix. And I was like, wow.
I worked in America a lot. So did you, Marcellus. And that's where I learned the madness that goes on there. I mean, they'd spend like Dexter Simmons, who I worked with a lot out there, would spend 2 days on a mix, and he'd complain that you hadn't given him long enough when he had to wrap it up after 2 days. Wicked engineer. And then it would be recorded to DAT via a half-inch machine at 15 IPS. And what effectively happens there is you completely and utterly change the bottom end of the mix that you've been working on for 2 days. And I'm like, that's utter anarchy, man. What the?
That's analog and digital, isn't it?
Sure, yeah.
Input and output.
Yeah, just into the half-inch tape machine, out of the half-inch tape machine, have a tape running, but then the output goes into the DAT, and that's what you're actually recording it on. And it did my head in, because it's like, well, hang on, you've spent 2 days getting that bottom end on the mix, and you've now completely and utterly changed it. And he would say something like, but it sounds great, doesn't it, man? I'd be like, it sounds fucking great, man.
I think that's why mastering was much more important in those times, in those days, because you couldn't, at 3 o'clock in the morning, you couldn't rebalance your bottom end, but because you had it right to start with, it hit the half-inch tape, all the top came off straight away, so all that top end is gone. The bottom end's probably pronounced depending on what tape.
The DAT replaces the top end, though.
Right, and then you hear that, it all comes back. So it's kind of swings and roundabouts, and I think you needed a great pair of ears to actually master what you'd done in that room and make it sound like that outside of your room. Now I think we've got enough technology, we've got enough knowledge to actually understand how it's going to sound outside our room, and make it sound wrong in the room, knowing it will be right when you take it outside.
That's one of the weird, because let's face it, there is no perfect sounding space. All this talk of sweet spots and stuff, it's going to sound different in a different environment to a different pair of ears, even, let's be honest, Chris, we cut you off there a bit. So you were tone shaping away with your 1176 on hi-hat,
So, also using it in really extreme ways. I remember I worked with an assistant engineer once who'd done a lot of time out in California, worked with, what's his name? Soul singer, but producer. Anyway, he had this trick of, on female vocals, where use a Massenburg.
Love it.
Wind the top end 25K plus 15.
Because it's the curve, isn't it?
Bell or shelf?
Shelf.
Okay.
Whoa, hardcore.
Hardcore, yeah.
And then he'd run that through an 1176, hitting like smashing it like -20 all the time. And you've got this silky, sexy R&B sound. It just came out the other end.
Was it a particular singer, or because I mean,
No,
singers are so different?
I tried it on a few different singers. It was a good catch for people who didn't really have it in their voices. I'll tell you.
Well, there you go.
Drag it out of them.
You get this air at the top that's just lovely.
Yeah, I get that.
It's a pancake. You know.
It'd have to be a Massenburg or something like that, though, because the cranking top end like that, especially on any plugin, I think, Fab Filter's got a really sweet top end, and there are some plugins that do have quite a sweet top end these days, but cranking that amount top end is really testing what the hell it is that you're using, right?
Yeah, and the medium you're working on, because with PCM Digital, you got all those aliasing curves you're bringing up. So digital distortion can be horrible.
Yeah, it so can.
And if you haven't got the right, for instance, level for your vocal or whatever you're smashing, it's like you're bringing up equal amount of jitter and dither and these horrible sounds that we don't like, So
dirty, nasty sounds.
Yeah, to an extent, with analog, when you did that, you were boosting up noise. But as you know now, people have realised that noise is actually a cool thing.
Yeah,
with all the plugins with the noise function on it,
Back to the start here, Marcellus. One of the first words you said was glue.
There you go. Yeah,
it's the fudge, isn't it? It's the glue. I think so. That the correct, I think what people really need to get from this discussion is that it's that sort of "don't try this at home, folks" thing. You've really got to have seriously trained ears. You've got to have the experience of doing this and maybe failing at it quite a few times until you really get to understand that glue, that fudge, that like nice coming together of things. Yeah.
No, absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, what's your favorite compressor, Paul?
Well, do you know what? I was going to flip the script, and Tim will maybe remember this, but when I had my room at Trident, I found this compressor that had been chucked into a back room with a pile of gear that wasn't being used, and I didn't have a lot of outboard in my room, so I whacked it in my rack, plugged it in, and it worked really well, and it was a Uri 176.
Oh my gosh, you had a 176.
176.
How rare are they?
How rare are they? It's, for the audience out there, a 176 was the precursor to the 1176, and it is a tube 1176. And to this day, guys, that's what I use on my vocals. There's a wonderful plugin company called Analog Obsession. They're free plugins, by the way. They have a Patreon. You can, chuck them a little bit of money, and I really recommend, and they do a plugin compressor called OSS. And the OSS is a 176, and it's beautiful. It's utterly beautiful. I use it on every vocal every time. But I couldn't really say that if I only had one compressor, I'd go with a 176. I'd go for 1176, to be honest. But I'm going to flip the script on you guys. Ha ha. So here's the deal, right? You have been starved of compressors by me in your room, and you're supposed to get this track together with one compressor, and you're like, bastard. And you know that in my room next door, I've got every compressor you could ever wish for. They're all just sat there. So what you do is you slip a Mickey Finn into my tea. I go to bed early. I'm going to be whacked out for hours. And you go in my room and you raid all the compressors in my room. What compressors are you going to use on what? You've got a whole track going on here. You've got a live drum kit. You've got programmed drums, bass guitar, synth bass, bunch of synths, guitars, rhythm guitar, lead guitar. You've got a vocal. You've got a string quartet. You've got backing vocals. Any tips? What compressor for what do you reckon? You've got Focusrite Reds in there. You've got CL1B in there. You've got a very Moo Manly in there. You've got them all in there. You've even got your DBX 160 X, was it the X, the sort of really cheap DBX that you'd always have quite a few of them in there because they were cheap, and it's just every compressor.
Always worked on a bass, so.
Well, let's go for bass. I mean, tips for everybody.
I mean, to me, that almost depends on what sort of instrument you're actually recording and putting it through in the first place. If it's a keyboard synth, it depends on the preset for that. If it's a guitar or a bass guitar, it's all going to be different. I mean, that's the thing about all these things. You can't really sort of say that doesn't work. Try it. It might actually. I hear that. You don't know. It may not, but at least you tried. At least you got rid of one option.
Yeah.
So I'd have to favour that approach. I'd probably have channels on the desk or in the box, 4 different compressors for the bass, and like I said earlier, I love auditioning stuff. Because
are they frequency conscious, Marcellus?
No, I normally split a bass in. I split a bass normally because I don't think that any compressor can handle the speed.
I've just run out of juice. Go on.
Yeah, sure. I don't think any compressor can handle the 2 speeds that a bass guitar has, because the finger, it could be a fast compressor like a DBX of some kind, and the lower end of it, I want to set the release time to like almost a second, or depending on what kind of music it is and what kind of beat it is. I want different dynamics on the top and the bottom of the bass instrument. So I'd probably, have 2 compressors that are completely different on the top and the bottom of the bass.
Yeah.
I don't know if any of you guys work like that or think like that, or what you're.
Well, personally, like you say, it's totally depends on the material and the performance and the instrument and what the producer wants at the end and what you're mixing for. So there's a trial and error part of the process. No, it's interesting what you're saying about bass there. Particularly, I was working on a track a couple of months ago which had a really busy bass line. It was like do 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 do, and it was upbeat, but it was for a dance track, so you had to hear all of those notes, but it had to be like heavy and deep at the same time. There's about 5 plugins on that track, and I like the Oxide plugin on the Universal Audio. That's really, you can get a lot of variation very simply by pissing around with the input level and the tape speed and the EQ curve. It's trial and error. So I'll take all the compressors, Paul, and rack them up and then see what works.
I've got a fix for bass, guys, and Marcellus and I actually had this conversation a few days ago. My fix for bass, my go-to for bass is the FabFilter Pro MB, which I use as a multi-band expander. It works brilliantly. So I tend to, on bass, so I'll have 4 frequency bands. First band I set will be the sub. And I upward compress the sub, get that sitting nice and punchy. And what you do is, when you expand or upwards compress sub frequencies, low frequencies, it actually tightens them up.
Yeah,
which is obviously great. Then I'll go for the meat of the dish, round about left and right of 100 hertz, like the real sort of, where the bass is fundamentally sat at. And once again, I'll upwardly expand that. The beautiful thing about Pro MB as well is that you can solo the band that you're working on as you work on it. And then you can unsolo it, in course. And then I'll do the sort of the top end of the fingers of the bass, really. And then I'll usually mute the ultra high frequencies. I mean, there's not usually anything happening above sort of, 5K, or there's not really much going on up there at all, is there? So, and that muting those ultra high frequencies actually tightens the sound, I find, as well. So a great tip I will say for people is use a multi-band expander on bass, and expansion is, of course, upward compression. Guys,
and it's dealing with the speaker going back, whereas the compressor is dealing with the speaker coming out. So you're as Paul says, you're tightening up bands of the sound. and are able to then find a place in the mix for what you're trying to do.
Yeah, yeah. It's a trick that works great on the stereo bus as well, on the mix, the whole mix.
Yeah.
Really
I've got an TCM 6000 that's brilliant for that.
Right.
It's a discrete digital compressor, if there's such a thing. In terms of the chipsets involved in that box are quite incredible. And let's talk about plug-in against the real thing. Not only is analog outboard to me kind of brings something to the table when you're mixing or working.
Personality, right?
But so does digital. That is a dedicated box. So I had a TC, and a Weiss in my mastering chain for a long time, and they're both digital units. But the Weiss is upsampling to 96K inside the box, something that the plugins do now.
Yeah,
if you've got enough CPU.
Oversampling. I've been banging on about that for years and years, and anyway.
Right. So these little things. Headroom. Somehow the dedicated digital device against the plugin has a size that the plugin doesn't have.
It's true, man.
But only for a complicated piece of audio like your stereo bus or the drum bus or something like that. It's not as revolutionary when you put it on a lead vocal, for instance. I think the plugin is much more suited to doing that work within the context of your mix. So absolutely. Outboard digital as well brings something to the table.
Absolutely. So, for listeners, viewers, we are going to be covering all of these individual subjects on subsequent episodes of Sound Advice. Please hit that subscribe button. You know you want it.
And send us your questions.
Absolutely do comment in the chat section. And the beautiful thing with obviously the subscribe is that YouTube will very kindly let you know when episodes of this show are on. Do hit the like button, please, because that really helps us do this. That helps us grow the channel and get this thing rolling. So blimey, guys, so we ended up on this. I think we should wrap up really with, okay, that's all very well, guys. You talked about all these classic hardware compressors that cost shitloads of money these days, but I haven't got any of that. What do? I've got a bunch of plugins. Any plugin recommendations from you guys?
Nope. Cheap plugin.
Tim, like the response from Tim. Well, put it bluntly.
I'm being a bit unfair there, but no, my mind doesn't jump instantly to plugins like that. Not since I stopped doing what I'm doing these days. So
okay, so for me, Desert Island plugins would be the Fab Filter collection. Basically, I think those if those guys are listening, like, call us up, because
please, guys,
you guys have really changed our lives. Some of us, anyway.
Do you know what I'm going to say on that, Marcellus? You have to think in terms of a lot of plugin technology can be considered classic. You've got classic EQs like, obviously the Neve, the Pultec, the SSL. But I really will say that the Fab Filter Pro Q is an all-time classic equalizer, is it not?
Totally agree.
Yeah.
How would you live without your Fab Filter plugins these days? Seriously.
I couldn't. I honestly couldn't.
No.
Absolutely.
They do so much work for me, especially the Q3. Obviously the L2 as well. But all of their gear, like the MB and, like you mentioned, the reverb even, and the gate and the compressor, it's got something different about it. I don't know how they did that, but they certainly remember Fab Filter used to be just Volcano.
They were originally, I remember when they started out, they literally only made filters.
Right.
That was it.
Right.
They just made filters.
And that Volcano was dangerous,
Yeah, it was lethal.
You had to control it. It was pretty wild.
Yeah. I mean, seriously, for viewers, we are not endorsed by Fab Filter, unfortunately. We're not endorsed by them, but I speak to any pro who works in the box. or who, you know, is hybrid in and out of the box using, you know, analog and digital, and everybody will say FabFilter. They're actually a must-have kind of thing. So if you're going to recommend any plugins, I think they're top of the list.
What's amazing is the functionality with the Q3, because it's got that artificial intelligence thing that just tells you where the spikes are. You can see the spectrum and analysis of the instrument. You can see where the peaks are.
It's about using your ears.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But why not use both? You know.
True.
Absolutely.
Well, the trouble is for me is I found too many people relying on what they're seeing on a
looking at
rather than listening.
Yeah.
And sometimes things didn't need to be fixed, and they were fixing them anyhow.
Yeah.
You were erasing all the character that was in something because you had to get it perfect. But the perfect, I mean, character is in the imperfections.
Of course, yeah.
Can I add to that, Tim? Spike, who I worked with a gazillion times, always had this thing. The lights had to be turned down as low as is possible in the control room while he was mixing.
Well, we worked together at Trident, so yeah, I know.
Spike, absolutely. You go back with him too. Now, there's a reason for that, because the less distraction your sensors have, the more your ears kick in and do their work.
I'd agree.
And that was why he had the lights down really low in the control room, because you're using your ears, not your eyes, when you're mixing.
True. Very much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But like Marcellus said, hey, you can see the waveform. Why not?
Yeah, why not?
Well, it's whether you let that rule what you're doing. What if your eyes are ruling, or whether your ears are ruling, kind of thing. That's my.
Why not let them both rule at a different moment?
Because one sense will automatically overpower the other one, just because it is there and it is available. And that's really the Mark Stent approach. Whereas, you know, bring all the lights down and there's less visual
sensory perception going on. Yeah, it's a very interesting idea. Yeah, I like that.
He used to complain back in the days of using hardware samplers, Akai's and stuff. Regularly, I'd have to have the lights turned on in the control room because I had a floor full of boxes of floppy disks, and I had to find particular samples. And he would complain that I had to have the lights switched on. Come on, Waller. You know, oh man, you know.
But Paul, that was very much in the days when there was two of you. There was the guy at the desk and the guy at the Pro Tools, because the evolution of Pro Tools, you needed two people.
Yeah.
And I always prided myself on the fact I could run both in a session. You know, and I think that's the way it's gone. And in fact, to a point, the engineer is no longer the guy who sits in front of the console. It's quite often a creative in the team who has got ears for engineering, you know. And I noticed this a lot during the hip hop years, that you take Dr. Dre, for instance, like he could get on the board and EQ that. He didn't ask the engineer to EQ it for him.
Teddy Riley as well.
Teddy Riley. There was a whole host of these cats who came up being able to program a beat and mix it as well. So I feel the role of the engineer has changed quite a lot. Of course, in different music, it's different. But generally, you have a studio in your bedroom now. We had to go to a studio when we were younger and go through that ritual, which we all, I think, agree was a fantastic experience.
Wonderful.
But now it doesn't seem to be like that to me. And I see the engineer being kind of filtered out of the equation a bit. And if it makes great music, so be it, you know. But all I'm saying is now available to the creative is a process to learn how to get that out in a mix, how you hear it, which is you're the person who's making the music. So I think engineers that can, producers who can engineer are quite a powerful kind of component in modern music.
Chris,
it was always the job to get what the producer wanted. So.
Right. Cut the middleman out.
Yeah, cut the middle. There ain't no middleman these days. Oh boy, only Distro Kid. They're the middleman these days.
Yeah,
Chris, anything you want to wrap up with?
Just to going back to the visual possible distraction, but also very useful to be able to see.
Yeah.
I mean, I like to think I start off with listening and going, right, that needs to have this done to it. And sometimes being able to see the frequency spectrum, see where the note is, where the annoying harmonic is incredibly useful to achieve that aim. But you've got the impetus for doing that from listening in the first place. And the other thing I do is I've got a graphic file, a JPEG, which is just black. And on a Mac, you do Control Left, Control Right to get to different screens. So I always have a black JPEG full screen as the next desktop next to my Logic. And when I'm playing back, I'll just switch to that.
That's so funny, Chris, because in the old days of those gigantic computer monitors that we used to use, when we used to listen to the mix, I used to turn the monitor off because I found people would sit there staring at the computer screen. I would just literally turn the monitor off because in those days you could. It was a separate affair to, I know you still can, but absolutely,
It goes back to what I was saying about the producer taping over all the meters so nobody could watch anything and just listen.
Listen.
Hey, this has been so good, I think. If people out there, if you've really enjoyed this, without us talking about it right now, we have been audio snobs, and we're not so bad, actually, are we? And this has hopefully been sound advice for you guys. The subject for next week's discussion every Friday YouTube is going to be vocal chain. So there's going to be lots of anecdotal stuff happening, being spoken about by our 4 regulars on. We'll also be having some mates of ours, some real specialists, some real cool characters coming on here, probably about once a month. We'll also have a monthly roundup of stuff that we feel should be talked about, a bit of a news round. Let's talk about this. And a future episode will be about AI plugins, which will be pretty interesting. But next week, next Friday, sound advice, audio snobs, vocal chains. Thanks for being here. Cheers.